General Anthony C. Zinni, The Core Doctrine, Balanced and Ready. General Anthony Zinni began his career as a second lieutenant advising Vietnamese Marines in combat. He ended his career as commanding general of U.S. Central Command from 1997 to 2000. He is well known to be an out-of-the-box thinker and well-versed in the application of military power. In this segment of an oral history interview conducted with General Zinni in 2007 by historian Fred Allison, General Zinni comments on the soul-searching that the Marine Corps underwent in the late 1970s after the Vietnam War. There were accusations that the Marines were irrelevant and calls for radical changes in tactics and doctrine, and that the Marine Corps needed to reinvent itself to face the threats of the day. As a young field-grade officer serving at Headquarters Marine Corps, then as a student at Command and Staff College, General Zinni was present at this time of flux and transition. With the appointment of a new commandant, General Lewis H. Wilson, a fresh wind blew through the Marine Corps. Wilson and other leaders set a course that proved to be a right one, but at the time no one knew the future and the doctrinal controversies were hotly debated. General Zinni describes this exciting and critical time.
During this time also, speaking of General Wilson, he becomes commandant, right, at that time. Did that, was that reflected? I mean, were you getting a change in the atmosphere at headquarters and at the Corps?
Yeah, to be honest, there were a lot of issues and complaints, and people really felt, that maybe they were coming out of Vietnam or all sorts of issues. There was a little intrigue going on between the commandant and the assistant commandant, and the issues about trying to influence the selection and everything else. But that, and of course, as a young major, you're watching this all from distance. But when General Wilson came in, it was amazing. Here we had this Medal of Honor recipient, World War II hero, known for his strict adherence to standards, and it was, like a breath of fresh air. Start really establishing and reestablishing, I should say, and enforcing the standards. He was the model in every respect, and as the commandant, he began to really take on the Marines for sort of renaissance as all volunteer force. So he became and I think that combined with President Reagan coming in, and now we're in Washington, and you read that where even points now President Reagan wants us to wear uniforms in Washington. So, I think this sort of resurgence of pride and everything else. So it was kind of a great time to be up there watching all this.
Very noticeable. Yeah. All right, sir. And then what did you want to do as your time comes to an end there in June 78? About what did you to do from out of there?
Actually 77, and I go to Command and Staff College.
Oh, that's right. I got it right here. August 77.
Yeah, I selected for Command and Staff College, and that was a great year, like all times in school, and Monica being amongst your peers. It was a time at Command and Staff College when the big emphasis now, at that time, there was a book, a small pamphlet written by Jeffrey Record in India called Where Does the Corps Go From Here? There was a re-questioning of the need for a Marine Corps. They were now saying the Marine Corps is, heading in the jungle. The real need is in Europe, face off against the Soviets. The Marine Corps is not relevant there. We have now the Bill Lynn questioning the way we fight, nutrition warfare, criticisms that we're not mechanized enough. We don't have the combat power. People pushing us now toward becoming heavier, more the ability to fight in the Volga Gap or on the flanks, and now this whole emphasis about the Marine Corps needs to heavy up, needs to be more relevant against the Soviet threat, needs to look at itself in terms of greater, stronger combined arms, particularly mechanization. This whole emphasis now, General Wilson opens 29 Palms as a combined arms training center. We now have the beginning of looks at the LAV, light armored vehicles, combined engaged in this. It was not sort of the typical academic period, because this idea of where the Marine Corps goes, I mean, challenging our basic operational concepts, challenging our basic organization, challenging our basic work for utility for the security of the nation, meant that this was an exciting year, being in an academic environment in Quantico, being able to really get into those things, hear the debate, participate, think about it like we do here in that environment, made it more exciting than we normally would.
What, the end of the Vietnam War and everything, so everybody's kind of looking for something different, some changes. Some changes need to be made.
Well, also at the same time, they were beginning to talk about the maritime strategy. And now the Navy and the Marine Corps were beginning to look at how, what should be the maritime component to a strategy against a Soviet force. And so we were now beginning to look at the flanks of Europe. We're now beginning to look at Norway, the Greenland, Iceland, the United Kingdom gap, the GI-UK gap, the southern flank. And so now the utility of naval forces in the Marine Corps on the flanks in Europe, how we would operate in the Pacific against the Soviet threat and project that kind of power. This was also added to the mix. So, again, all these things were swirling about. It was an exciting time for people that were intellectually very challenged.
And that focus was on Europe.
The focus was on Europe.
Europe, and the Cold War and all that sort of.
Yeah, and we were now going to put carriers in the fjords and everything else. And even the exercises now, you had the major exercises in the northern flank of Europe and the southern flank of Europe. The Navy and Marine Corps, along with allies, participating in the building up.
And you would get involved in that when you headed to Camp Lejeune. Do you remember? Well, I want to ask something about Bill Lynn now. I've heard a lot about him. I haven't really been able to nail him down, but was he someone that advocated mechanization for the Marine Corps?
He did. Well, first of all,
I heard big maneuverist.
Yeah, I first met him when I was at headquarters Marine Corps. A friend of mine down here knew him and said, they were meeting with him down here. Little groups of officers would get together after hours and discuss all these sorts of things. I was invited to one session down here at Quantico, and
These were informal.
they were informal.
At a club or something?
Yeah, at the club or someone's home, and I came down. The first time I heard him, he was advocating obviously this emphasis on maneuver warfare, but not maneuver. I mean, it was a mindset, a way of thinking, a different way to assess the enemy you will go up against, a different way to think about how you unhinge them, more effective and more efficient the way you do things, less attrition-based than sort of the traditional processing of terrain and forces and all that. And it was beginning to catch on. It began to resonate. I think the effects of Vietnam and people not understanding it, looking at sort of the doctrine and sort of the World War II conventional, trying to think about ways to be more creative on the flanks again, going back to Europe and elsewhere. And so that thinking was beginning to catch fire. It was beginning to generate what became, over the next decade, really a rethinking or a renaissance. Probably General Gray case really then became central to how the Marine Corps thought. But he also felt strongly about the Marine Corps needing to mechanize, be more mobile and more. He was an advocate of that. He promoted White Army. He was trying to push the Marine Corps as a permanent organization. And the debate then, of course, there's always trade-offs in this. It was dangerous. The old guys, like we had General Kulak Sr. come down and talk to our original state colleges, you have to be careful that you don't catch the trend of the day. Because the fad of the day, because he remembered when President Kennedy wanted the Marine Corps to become the counterinsurgency force, become like what the special forces became. And the Marine Corps resisted it. Had they done it, they would become really irrelevant as Vietnam came down. And he said, you have to think about when you come from the sea, we're projected from the sea. You can't heavy yourself up so much that you're not liftable. You can't be moved, and you don't have the ability to act. And the key, he said, is two things: stay balanced change and all this other stuff. So even at, from that level, that kind of, which to me, see, as I thought about this, I became more convinced that the stay balanced and stay ready was the way to go, as opposed to saying, no, let's chase the latest trend. And there was a lot of pressure. I mean, people like Lind and others were putting pressure on trying to get Congress and others, force us into these. And later on, General Wilson, because when he did the study groups, and I participated in one with General Gray, the Brigadier General Gray, did the reserve reconstruction part, and the other part that was done to look at mechanization and all, were ready to come down and actually recommend. They recommended the Marine Corps MECA on a permanent basis. And the down here concepts and doctrine were writing all these MECATA, Marine Combat Arms Task Force concepts and everything else. And General Wilson, to his credit, resisted it under a lot of pressure.
Stick with what the Marine Corps is good at.
Yeah, and stay balanced and stay relevant, stay ready. Don't chase the latest trend.
General Zinni identifies the intellectual foment that swirled around Marine Corps leadership as new doctrine and policy was being pushed after the Vietnam War. The Marine Corps was resetting and looking for the way forward. He identifies how the Corps' top leader, General Wilson, wisely selected the right course from a number of options and despite the high-level pressure to pursue the latest doctrinal trends. What are the pressures on the Marine Corps today regarding reshaping the force or assuming a new warfighting doctrine that might threaten the Marine Corps' traditional and core roles of amphibious warfare, being the first to fight, and using combined arms? Additionally, how are students at the various Marine Corps schools instructed in our core doctrine, how it came about, and why? While it is important to consider other warfighting techniques and even evolving doctrine, what are the inherent dangers that must be taken into account? For additional information on doctrine and the Marine Corps way of war, suggested readings are First to Fight, An Inside View of the U.S. Marine Corps by Lieutenant General Victor H. Krulak, The U.S. Marine Corps and Defense Unification by Gordon Kaiser, Progress and Purpose, A Developmental History of the U.S. Marine Corps from 1900 to 1970 by Lieutenant Colonel Kenneth Clifford, The Legacy of Bella Wood, 100 Years of Making Marines and Winning Battles, an anthology, edited by Paul Westermeyer and Breanne Robertson, and Marine Corps Doctrinal Publication 1 TAC 0 Marine Corps Operations.